The Pat Dooley Show, brought to you by Wing Zone.
Welcome back to another episode of the Pat Dooley Show, episode 5. We took last weekend off. As you can see, I did not get a haircut during that time, but I promise by the time I come back next week, it'll be trimmed off. I'm going to get them all cut. Of course, sitting around watching football Saturday was a lot of fun. I consider it to be a national holiday. I think the government should declare it that way. You should not have to work on the day of Florida's bye week, unless, of course, you make chicken wings for a living. Then we need you to be working. But I watched a lot of different things, saw a lot of different things, and we'll talk about some of that coming up. But just want to talk a little bit about the LSU game. Of course, everybody's going to be wondering what happens with Tim Tebow, and we'll see. Again, I don't expect it to be announced until game time, just because they want to keep LSU guessing. And anybody who thinks that it's not two offenses that Florida or that LSU has to prepare for, you're crazy, because Brantley's going to play something different than Tebow is. It's going to be, even though it's going to be similar in structure, they're going to do different things. They're going to play to John Brantley's strength, much like they did with Chris Leak. The difference being there's no Tebow to come in on 3rd and 1 and bail him out. But at any rate, going to Tiger Stadium, always fun. I've been down there many times. Some of the great performances in the past have come there. If you remember in the 90s, Florida used to go in there every year and win. Even in the 80s, won a lot there. Tiger Stadium itself is not that intimidating. I think, personally, Knoxville's more intimidating. I think Auburn's more intimidating. But the bottom line, and this is what I'm writing about this weekend, if you got the players, it's intimidating. It's what Phil Fulmer used to always say about the Swamp. Yeah, the Swamp's loud. Yeah, the Swamp's hot. But if they're good, that's why it's a tough place to go play. And I think the same is true with LSU over the last several years. And as many of you know, Urban Meyer's never won there. Of course, played there twice. First year was hamstrung. And that was the year that I looked at Florida play and said, wow, maybe this Urban Meyer guy doesn't know what he's doing. And I've told him that story because they had 5 receivers out there. I think one was Kyle Morgan, Gavin Dickey, Kenneth Tukes on one side. LSU covered him with one guy and blitzed everybody. And Florida got 5 turnovers that day and still couldn't win the game. And then, of course, the game 2 years ago, where if they don't fumble, if Keith Moore doesn't fumble, they probably go on and win the game. They were the better team, I thought, that day. And Charlie Strong will still tell you Jacob Hester didn't get the first down on 4th and 1. So we'll see what happens this week. It's going to be interesting. I keep getting asked this question. Is this a rivalry game for Florida? Well, you can't make it a rivalry game because you got enough of them already. But it's become one of the biggest games every year for the Gators. Last year, you remember the atmosphere in the Swamp. It was electric. That place was on fire. And it was probably one of the best pregame atmospheres I've seen in a long time. Gator fans knew how important that game was. The game 2 years ago in Baton Rouge, again, just an electric place to be. But is it a rival? No, you can't say that. But it is the biggest game of the year so far, and it may be the biggest game until the SEC championship game. If Florida wins this game, there's nobody on a schedule where you look at and you go, I don't know. You're thinking they're going to roll through them. But this game, LSU, good defense. They've got a quarterback who manages the game, really good receivers. Watch for that matchup. That's going to be huge. Their wide receivers against Florida's excellent secondary, that's going to be a big factor in this game. And now we're going to look at the 3 things I learned this weekend. Number 1, the SEC has some really sucky quarterbacks. I thought that guys like Mike Hartline and Jonathan Crompton would improve during the offseason. At least that's what we're being told by their coaches. They're awful. Crompton is one reason that Tennessee's not going to have anything better than 6-6 record this year. And Hartline, while facing 2 really good defenses in Alabama and Florida the last 2 weeks, really just makes those throws across the body right to a linebacker. He's not very good. And when you look at the SEC, Jevin Snead's really struggling. Who are the great quarterbacks this league? Well, we know the guy that wears 15 is pretty good. And McElroy at Alabama, you got to give him props. Ryan Mallett, pretty good as well. But the league quarterback play is still not great. And it needs to get great for the teams in the bottom half of this league to be able to pull the upsets. I don't see it. Vandy, terrible quarterback. Kentucky, terrible quarterback. Mississippi State, not much going on quarterback. I mean, that's the problem for these teams. South Carolina, Garcia, I put him in the we don't know yet category. Does okay. That's the number 1 thing I learned. Number 2, I was wrong about Gene Chizik. I'm willing to stand up here like a man and say it. I thought it was the stupidest hire I have ever seen in my life. Of the 3 teams that hired new coaches in the conference, when you're finishing 3rd to Dan Mullen and Lane Kiffin among dumb hires, that's really bad. Well, guess what? Lane Kiffin, nothing. Okay, recruiting good, 2 and 3. Dan Mullen, okay, he's done okay there, nothing special. Gene Chizik's 5-0. The guy knows what he's doing, obviously. He knows how to get his players ready to play. He inherited good talent, but he certainly hired the right coaches and has coached those assistant coaches up to coach well. So my hat's off to Gene Chizik, if I had one. But I was wrong, totally wrong about him, and I promise not to refer to him as Gene Chizik anymore. Number 3, you still have to have players. You look at the cases of some teams that have been disappointing so far this year. Oklahoma, well, you had the injuries there. It's not because of Bobby Stoops didn't recruit good players. 3 major injuries they've already had this year on offense. That's going to hurt any team. Tennessee, for all the boisterous talk of Lane Kiffin, they're not very talented. I'm sure when he brings in another good class, they're going to get there. It's going to take a while for Tennessee. Vol fans, I think, understand that. But around the country, people are going, why does Tennessee stink? Well, they weren't good before. Phil Fulmer's to blame for this season, not Lane Kiffin. And Florida State, they can talk all they want about how the recruiting's improved. The rivals and none of the services say it has. And now you're seeing it again. They're not good because they don't have players. Coaches matter, but it's still about the players more than anything else. All right, that's going to do it for 3 things. We're going to come back in just a minute. You know him, you love him. James Bates is going to join us here in the studio to talk a little football. All right, welcome back to the Pat Dooley Show, episode 5, and we're joined by my good buddy James Bates. You know him well from, of course, all his years as a Florida linebacker, all his years on the James Bates Show on Cox Cable. It was like a Wayne's World.
It was Wayne's World, and you hooked me up so many times, so it's the least I could do. Anytime you need me, I'm here, Pat.
Well, you had the Wayne's World couch going. When I came in, I wanted to have the holes in my jeans to just to make it totally the feeling. And of course, as many of you know, he's now the face of the Mountain West Conference, and I think that face has got to be chipped out of granite, doesn't it, if you're in the Mountain West Conference?
You know, I should be able to grow a beard. I shaved for you this morning, but if you're the face of the mountains, yeah, that's a good point. You wear a lumberjack shirt.
Our good friend Brandon's out there and grew a beard himself, so there you go. You should, why don't you just grow a big beard?
Because I can't.
A Dan Fouts-like beard.
It's spotty. I can't. Puberty's right around the corner. And when it hits, I'm going to grow a full beard. It's easy top.
And also a winner of a local Emmy. I don't know how many of you know that, for his appearance with Todd Christensen in their promo. What's he like to work with?
He's awesome. He
seems a little flaky.
No. Definitely not flaky. He's different.
Yeah.
He's very different. You know, we all are, but he's a great kind of different. He's been so good to me. You know, at one time he was on the #2 broadcast team in the NFL with Charlie Jones, and very opinionated. And so, you know, so I've learned a lot from him because I'm doing play-by-play, and we're going into our 4th year now working together. And I hadn't done a lot of play-by-play prior to going out there. I had done some, and CSTV, which is really who hired me and sent me out there, took a chance by sending me out there. And I'm very proud of the job that I've done, and I've grown, you know, in a lot of ways, and he's been a big help for me, and he's fun. Very knowledgeable.
You were doing high school stuff before that, right? High school play-by-plays for some state championships?
Had done some
stuff like that?
Some stuff for Sunshine Network at the time, and arena football play-by-play as well, and some water polo and some, BMX stuff.
That's got to be fun to broadcast. And he's underwater. Now he's up.
Water polo is fun to broadcast. It's better than soccer.
I'll take your word.
And plus the respect that you got to have for these guys, you know. Everywhere I travel, it's with a swimmer. I got Tina over there.
That's true. So. I'd rather watch her swim than watch you do water polo, I'll tell you that much. Now, certainly, you have the greatest gig imaginable in that you live in Gainesville, but you get to fly out every weekend to cover to the mountains and cover a great game. I mean, that must be a lot of fun. But tell us, how did you talk them into letting you move back here?
It was a scary moment for the Bates family because we lived in Colorado for 2 years. Mm-hmm. We had 16 months prior to moving out, we found this house that was in Gainesville, and all my work was always freelance. So Gainesville was going to be the place to be for us, and I just get anywhere from Gainesville. And so we found this place, and it was a mess, and we spent 16 months renovating it. Busted our butts and got way in over our heads. We had to put in a lot of grunt work just to make the thing happen.
Right.
And we're laying the last piece of sod, and the phone's ringing, and it's CSTV. It's like, hey, we want you to move to Denver, and the mountain's launching, and what an opportunity. But we wanted to cry because this was our place. So we rented it out for 2 years. And after 2 years of fun and snow, not fun and sun, and enjoying really loving our time in Colorado and fishing and hiking and everything, we just missed Gainesville. This is really home. And we realized that, you know, maybe we can get this done from there. And so we decided that that's what we wanted to do. And then I had to make the call. And I don't know that I would have been as easy with it if I were the powers that be at the Mountain West Sports Network.
Yeah.
But they said, hey, if you feel like you can do it, and it's been great. I've been here for almost a year and a half now, and it's a lot of traveling, but when I'm gone, the family's exactly where they want to be, and we've got a great support staff. I mean, shoot, how many times have you and Karen been over to babysit? And that's been wonderful.
Zero so far, yeah.
But, you know, and
but we will if you ask.
Okay, that's the deal. And you can teach them all about the Beatles, because they don't have enough Beatles education.
I will. I can't teach. Now, did this house, did it come with the bocce ball court, or did you build that?
Yeah, I built. You got to come over and play some bocce.
Is it high quality?
It's quality. It's got some undulations that everybody's got to play on.
You got to play the breaks.
You know, you got to play them a little bit, but everybody's playing on the same shoot. Everybody's playing on the same surface, and it was something that basketball season, as you can imagine, gets to be such a grind. And last basketball season, this is coming off of a summer where we went to New York and played at this place called Il Vagabondo, which is this great Italian restaurant, and they've got bocce downstairs. I was like, wow, wouldn't it be fun to have a bocce court? Well, basketball season hit last year, and it was just grinding. And I was just so tired of talking and smiling, and I would see guys working on the side of the road. I was like, I want to just dig holes and chop wood. I wanted just for like a week. Well, a week turned into 2.5 weeks, and we busted pipes with bringing in dirt and everything, but it was a mess. But we've got this great bocce court, and we have so much fun. Tim Walton's a regular over there.
Yeah.
He dang won our first tournament at the bocce court, and we got a bocce tree of champions. And Urban came by, which he wrote
told me about that. Yeah,
Urban came by and played in a big tournament right before the season, and Mickey Marotti won the tournament, and it's been fun. You'll come out to the next one.
Mickey Marotti just scare everybody into winning? Did he say, I'm winning or I'm crushing this ball in my hand?
How does a guy play bocce with luggage in his hands? Or are those bags that he's carrying around, or what? To go to the airport, I thought he was in a rush. Slow down and play bocce.
Now, what's your relationship like with Urban? I know I wrote a little bit about it, but and he's talked about it some, and I mean, he's a hard guy to get to know at first. Yeah. But once you get to know him, he's pretty loyal to his friends. Well,
you know, I didn't know him from Adam, and one day I get a Facebook friend request that says Urban Meyer, and I just said, this looks like an interesting fellow.
I'm not buying that.
LOL, LMAO, LMAO. Like, hey, I like this guy. I like the way he does his emoticons. He does great emoticons. And we just kind of got to know each other early on, and we've got sons that are the same age, and he's been a great friend. He really has been a really good friend, and I feel silly talking about him as a friend because he's Urban Meyer, and I go out to the Mountain West Conference and shoot the Utah people. They still look, gosh, Urban, and so I'm kind of careful. But he's a really good friend that I would talk about just like that, and he's so good to the girls, the Bates girls, and to my wife, and he's just I really enjoy being around him, and I enjoy the friendship aside. I appreciate what he has done for this program, and just
right?
takes care of those kids. No, well, not just the wins.
Yeah.
And there were some troubles off the field this summer, as we all know, but that kills him more than anything because he truly is turning those kids into good young men. I mean, that's very important to him. I do believe that.
One last thing before we let James go for now. We'll bring him back for our segment of either or. James, the concussions are the topic, and I know that there's a lot of people who thought you had a concussion in the national championship game. It actually was low blood sugar, but you have had a couple in your career. Just tell us what that's like in the days after.
Huh?
James?
Yeah.
Are you still having lingering effects? Is that what you're saying?
I'm hurting for Timmy, for all these kids that are dealing with this, all these players that are dealing with this, and especially, I mean, I obviously never took a shot like Tebow did last week, but it is something that, and it is, I joke, but it is something that sometimes, maybe a little bit slow from some of those hits. But at the same time, are these new helmets that are so different?
There are new helmets, yeah.
But they're all these concussions. And how many helmets do you see flying off a game?
I know. And I think that's the guy's not strapping the second one on. The way they're built now, you have to strap them both on. Nobody wants to strap that second one on.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of them floating around. But maybe it's a helmet issue.
So I don't know.
We could have Scoop here.
Yeah, we could.
Scoop on the Pat Dooley Show. All right. Well, if James can keep his wits about him, we're going to come back a little bit later in the show with either or, and he's going to answer some important questions.
Now.
What?
Right now or later?
Either now.
Okay. Or we can either do it right now if you wanted to.
I think actually next is up as a list,
or now.
isn't
We'll do it later.
The list is up next.
Yeah. Or No,
Or later.
either. Or, what,
We'll be right back.
or we'll just do what you want to do.
All right, now it's time for another list, and we're going to rank the SEC cities, excluding Gainesville. I live in Gainesville. I don't think it's right to rank Gainesville, but the city of Gainesville will be number one in my vote. That's why I live here. But this isn't based so much on stadium or game atmosphere. It's just the city. Friday nights, let's put it that way, Friday nights in the city. Number 5 is Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge has got great places to eat, as you might imagine. Not only the Cajun places, but there's a TJ Ribs is unbelievable there. And you know, somebody asked me once, they go, what are you saying, that you rank cities based on how they, the restaurants and bars? And I'm like, yeah. What else do you rank them on? Well, the parks? Okay. That's not me. All right, number 4, Oxford, Mississippi. And I'll confess this, I've never really spent much time in Oxford proper, but the Grove gets them on this list. The Grove is amazing. If you've never been there, just imagine 20,000 of your favorite friends in a field with tents and TVs up. It's a beautiful thing. I'd like to go to Oxford and spend a little time there, but we always stay in Memphis. But I'll still put Oxford number 4. Number 3 is Nashville. And of course, Vanderbilt's a very small part of Nashville, as you know. But what a great town there. I love the Strip right down the middle of it, where you have all these restaurants and places to go. And it's a lot of cultural stuff there as well, for those of you who like that. And you can get out of your hotel, take a walk, go around the big stadium where the Titans play. It's just a nice place. I like Nashville. I always look forward to going there. And the number 2 city on the list is Knoxville, Tennessee. You got to give it to Knoxville just because of the great river that flows up there. All those people coming as the Vol Navy approaches, and then Calhoun's is right there. They put a couple other places next to it. And downtown Knoxville, which we hardly ever see, is really something special. I've been there many times. And it's we tend to stay up by the airport and then come in. But when I've stayed in Knoxville, I've really enjoyed my time there. The number 1 city, Athens, Georgia. Trish and I were there last year for gymnastics, and it is just a beautiful city. When you've got a 24 square foot or square block area with nothing but restaurants, bars, gift shops, and comic book stores and record stores. I mean, it's just my kind of town. It's the kind of things I like to do. And if you go for a walk there, the hills are absolutely beautiful. Walk around the stadium. I think it's the most beautiful setting for a stadium in the SEC. So those are my 5 favorites. Sorry, Starkville and Fayetteville, you just missed the list. All right, we're going to come back in just a second. James Bates is going to rejoin us. We're going to do either or. Welcome to another edition of Either Or with my special guest, James Bates. And has Luther Ogle retired, James, or is he still out there?
No, he's retired, and that's
Not even on Halloween? Tina retired?
No, the best Luther Ogle though is Halloween. A kid came trick or treating to our house as Luther Ogle and didn't know that we lived there, and it was. I ran in and put on my Luther Ogle gear and took pictures with him, but yeah, that was a good Halloween story. But yeah, I don't know what happened to Luther.
Well, for those of you who don't know. You missed out. Okay, that's all I can say. We're going to play either or here. Who is to blame for FSU's mess this season? Either Jimbo Fisher or Bobby Bowden?
Wow. Well, I mean, it would have to be Jimbo Fisher. You look at that team now, and Bobby Bowden has meant so much to that team. But how much of the everyday goings on does Bobby Bowden have to do with that team?
Not much.
So the way I see it is Jimbo Fisher's the head coach. Bobby Bowden means so much and will always mean so much to that program. But this is Jimbo Fisher and his staff. It's their team. I hate to kick a dog while he's down, but that's a Jimbo Fisher team. I
don't think anybody watching this has any problem with you kicking that dog while he's down.
And I don't know Jimbo Fisher like I know Bobby Bowden, and I just don't want to.
Next time you're watching him, look at him in the eyes. He looks like Brady Ackerman. It's hard to explain.
Okay.
But here's my answer. You know who's to blame for this? The president at Florida State University for putting them in this situation where you have Jimbo Fisher and his guys, Bobby Bowden and his guys. You've got a terrible situation with Bowden where you're throwing him under the bus. I blame the president. So there was a
T-Pain?
T-Pain.
Who was it?
TK Weatherall.
No, who was it? What rapper was trying to be the president?
He may be the next president because that TK is stepping down. So I blame TK or T-Pay.
Luke should be the president of Miami.
Who?
Luther Campbell.
Yeah, he could be.
Either him or
somebody else. Number 2, who's got the better chance of going to New York for the Heisman? Jimmy Clausen or DeCorey Harris?
Ooh, everybody was high on DeCorey. Jimmy Clausen. Jimmy Clausen, just because of the way you media boys love Notre Dame, and well, maybe not you, but a lot of them do. Had it not been for playing so poorly at Virginia Tech, because that was the week to take it and run for Ja'Cory. I mean, everybody was in love with him, as they should be. That's a cool customer. But I think Jimmy Clausen, just kind of because it's been under that microscope, the failures of that program, and now, but you don't see them getting quite the love that they used to as a whole as a program. But I just got to go with Jimmy Clausen. Well, and we'll find out a lot, I guess, next week when they take on my brother's team in USC. That'll be a big one there.
It's just your brother's team. You don't have to say USC. That's all it is.
Well, yeah, I've never rooted for the Trojans before, so I'm just kind of easing my way into it.
Well, the thing about Ja'Cory Harris, hopefully at least finishes third so we can see him in that pink suit that he's promised to wear.
Ooh.
But one thing that bugs me about the whole Miami thing is everybody saying, "Wow, look at that schedule, the tough schedule they played, and what a job going out and scheduling." 3 of them were conference games. You don't schedule your conference games. And the other one was an Oklahoma team missing its 3 best players. Great job, Miami, going 3-1. Just don't get too caught up in it.
Yeah.
I think they've gotten a little too much love. Number 3, who starts for Florida at quarterback versus LSU? Tim Tebow or John Brantley? Now, but when this airs, when you're watching this, if they've already announced it, don't blame one of us for getting it wrong.
John Brantley. If and not that Timmy needs an extra week to get a feel for the offense, but if he's not meeting and he's not going through practice, I think John Brantley is capable of going out and doing a great job and taking it and running and they're going to do what's right for him. I just want what's right for Tim Tebow. He has meant way too much to this program that I don't want to jeopardize anything that he is going to do in the future. And my gut says JB.
Yeah, my gut all along has said Brantley would be the quarterback, and everybody has to realize this is not an Urban decision, it's not a Tebow decision, it's a doctor's decision. They're going to tell him whether he's cleared, and if he's cleared, he'll play. The only thing is, I learned never to bet against Tebow. I learned that the hard way against Oklahoma last year. So nothing would surprise me there. I will tell you this, I don't expect anything to come out until 7:05 on Saturday night when Tebow's either out there in his pads or he's not.
Well, maybe all those LSU fans with his number could just call him and ask him.
They didn't even bother to go to his number. They went to Brantley's number. So,
well, they know. Maybe they know something we don't.
They got scoop. Last one on either or. More likely to go to a bowl game this season, Tennessee or your Wyoming Cowboys?
That's right, Wyoming Cowboys, Powder River, Letter Buck. That is a fun team. It's a fun program to be around. Laramie, Wyoming is a little bit tougher to get to than some of these places. Probably like Starkville.
No, nothing's like Starkville.
Well, I mean, to get to it.
It's still not like Starkville.
But Wyoming, shoot, they've won 2 in a row. They upset UNLV, which was supposed to be turning the corner this year, and they just won another one down at FAU. And so they've got New Mexico this weekend, which they should win. 2 first-year head coaches out there, Mike Loxley, who has had a tough start there, former Florida coach, yes, and so absolutely going to go with Wyoming. I really enjoy going up there. You ever heard the beer song that they sing out there? In heaven there is no beer. Say, no beer. No
beer.
That's why we drink it here, right here.
Right here.
When we're gone from here, all our friends will be drinking all our beer.
All our beer.
It's fun.
All kinds of fun stuff.
Obviously. I didn't let you know.
This wasn't as good as Drew Copeland singing the other day.
Bad. Yeah, it was.
Here's a quick story about Starkville. We get there to fly out 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm at the front desk. They have a walkie-talkie next to it, and the woman's talking to me. She goes, "Yes, well, here you're on this seat." And all of a sudden I hear the guy on the thing go, "This plane's broke."
Oh.
I'm like, "Oh, I guess we won't be flying out right now, will we?" She goes, "It's canceled." Okay. Starkville, my favorite place. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Either Or. I want to thank James Bates and his lovely wife, Tina, over here for coming in and participating in the 5th Pat Dooley Show. Thanks, my man.
We should have had her hold the card that says Either Or.
She could have done that, yeah. Could have walked around. And now let's see what's in Dr. Football's email bag. All right, hope everybody enjoyed the 5th Pat Dooley Show, but before we go, we have to get a question from Dr. Football's email bag. All right, Jimmy wants to know. He calls me Dr. Do. You don't know me well enough to call me Dr. Do. Once last week against Kentucky, Florida lined up in the power I with Tebow behind center, a fullback, and one of our scat backs a tailback. And what happens? Some guy does a jitterbug move and gets nailed. My question is, why don't we use a power runner like Moody when we're in there like that and stick it in there behind the fullback, move the chains, and then give it to the scat backs afterwards? What is your obsession with Emmanuel Moody? Everybody is that way. I get more questions about Emmanuel Moody than any player on the team, except, of course, this week with Tebow. But, the bottom line is let the coaches do what they think works. Emmanuel Moody's good. He's a very strong running back, but those guys can break tackles as well. Not only that, but we don't know what's happening in practice. Maybe Moody has fumble problems in practice the way he has in games. But the bottom line is you're leading the league in rushing, leading the SEC in scoring, leading the country, I believe, in total offense, and you're number one in the country. You're undefeated. Let the coaches coach. Don't worry about Emmanuel Moody. He'll get his chances. All right, that's going to do it for the 5th Pat Dooley Show. I want to thank everybody for clicking us on. Until next time, Pat Dooley saying so long from the Sunshine State.